Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode number 24 of Rata Business Chunautiyan. Well, we started this 2 years ago, and today is the final episode, right? So all good things come to an end. But today's event is also going to be interesting. In a way, it's different. In the last 23 episodes, I've had guests come from some industry leaders across India, from the air conditioning and refrigeration industry, who've joined me to share their thoughts. Today, I don't have any guests. Today, I'm just going to take you through glimpses of what these people, these leaders actually shared with us. A key takeaways. So it's going to be interesting in that way. It's going to be action-packed. There's a lot of information. And trust me, we have had 75 speakers over the last 2 years. We haven't missed a single month. And every month, we've come up with interesting topics. And from an association's perspective, 2 years ago, when we started this program, we were just about 180 odd companies as members. And if you recollect, 2 years ago in the month of March, this is almost the same time is when the lockdown was declared. And there was an absolute anxiety as to what's going to happen in the future. How are we going to run our businesses? None of us had dealt with that situation where we had said that, oh my God, we got all the way to sit at home and no going to offices, no incomes, no running businesses. And it was all about, we were all getting anxious about it. And then the Labor Department came up with a notification. And it said that it doesn't matter if you do business or no. It doesn't matter if you have money or no. You've got to pay all your salaries and you got to pay your bills. And we were going through anxiety, now suddenly became anger. And I guess that's the time when a few of us got together and said that, hey, let's figure out what the mood of the trade is. Let's understand what the trade is. So from across the industry, we had some fabulous people like Vishal, who joined us from Calcutta, Akash from Mumbai, Mihir and Paras from Mumbai, Yogesh from Ahmedabad, Paurush from Surat, Kalyan from Hyderabad, Ajay Bararia from Bangalore, and Suresh from Indore, who all joined together, and we went on to share what the mood of the trade is. Have a look at the first episode that came out. This was never intended to be a monthly series. It just started with this event, which was to share what the mood of the business was.
Yeah. Mood, the mood is very depressing. The mind is very confused, and all of us are spending more time in the kitchen because we have no work to do. And basically, I was telling someone, my family also, ये सब हम लोग अपना time निकाल रहे हैं ताकि थोड़ा tension कम रहे दिमाग में. So occupied रहे. So as far as salaries go, see, that is one of the biggest challenges. The cash flow, the money, and the first liability, the first responsibility we have is to take care of our team. The money is not there with us to be able to take care of salaries in the month of April. So obviously, most people out here have started talking of having salary cuts slab-wise. The people who are drawing very low salary at the lower part of the spectrum should not have a cut. अगर उनको cut करना भी है तो एक बहुत minimal cut करें.
ये हमने जब बिजनेस पे उतरा हुआ है ना, तब तो डर से थोड़ी उतरा हुआ है यार. बिजनेस छाती ठोक के करने का, डर के क्या करने का. देखो, सबसे पहली चीज जो है ना, नीयत साफ होनी चाहिए. अपने बैंक में पैसा पड़ा हुआ है और अपने लोगों को पैसा नहीं दे रहा है तो गलत बात हो रहा है. अपने पास पैसा पड़ा हुआ है और वेंडर को पैसा नहीं दे रहा है तो गलत हो रहा है. नीयत साफ होनी चाहिए. दैट इज द फर्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग, दैट योर इंटेंट टू सपोर्ट एंड हेल्प योर पीपल. यू एंड मी आर इन द सेम बोट. यू हैव टू कम्युनिकेट टू योर पीपल. यहां पे आपको मालिक बन के नहीं रहना है. आपको यू हैव टू बी पार्ट ऑफ देयर टीम. यू हैव टू बी पार्ट ऑफ द टीम. उनके साथ चलना है और डर के धंधा मत करो यार. नीयत साफ होनी चाहिए. Don't bother about these notifications. Go out, help your people. Do your best 100%. फिर जो होगा ना ऊपर वाले पे छोड़ देते, कोई टेंशन मत ले.
तो इन्फॉर्मेशन सब ऑन द स्पॉट मिलेगी, सब होगी. बट जब तक आप एसोसिएशन के हाथ मजबूत नहीं करोगे, अजीत बोल रहे हैं ना, हम छोटे हैं. हम छोटे नहीं हैं, ये सबको दिखाना है. कैसे दिखाओगे? है तो छोटे छोटे, अंगुलियां मुट्ठी मिल के कैसे बड़ी बड़ी बन जाती है ना, ये हम कैसे बन सकते हैं? कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नमेंट को हिला सकती है, हम नहीं हिला सकते. हमारे पास प्लेटफॉर्म है. हम अभी 10 जगह हैं, हमको 20 जगह भी जाना है, 50 जगह भी जाना है. और हमारा एसोसिएशन पूरे देश में फैलाना है। अगर हमारे हाथ मजबूत हो गए तो क्या गवर्नमेंट हमारी बात नहीं सुनेगी? इम्पॉसिबल। कैसे मेडिकल एसोसिएशन देखो, कैसे आप ट्रांसपोर्ट एसोसिएशन देखो, सबकी बात गवर्नमेंट सुनती है, उनको सुनना पड़ता है। वो जिनेन है, हम कभी भी अनजिनेन चीज के लिए नहीं लड़ेंगे, ये हमारा राटा का प्रण है। बट जैसे भी सबने बोला हमारे पास पैसे है तो देना है, नहीं है तो हम कहाँ से देंगे भाई? कर लो, जो केस करना कर लो, लड़ लो, जो करना कर लो, है ही नहीं हमारे पास। अब बोलते ना नंगा क्या तो नहाएगा क्या, निचोड़ेगा, जब कुछ नहीं रहेगा तो क्या करोगे? तो इसके लिए हमको, हम लोग सब जगह जल्दी से जल्दी पहुंचे, जल्दी से जल्दी लोग हमारे साथ जुड़े और हमारा एसोसिएशन इतना स्ट्रांग बने कि हम छोटे नजर नहीं आए और हम सबको इन्फॉर्मेशन इमीडिएटली देते रहेंगे। और हमारे आरआरसी जो है फुल एक्टिव है, एक से एक बढ़कर है, तो आपको कहीं कोई चीज की अपडेशन में कमी नहीं आएगी।
So if you can just see whether we are getting an aid or not, let's just agree there is no financial aid that is expected, and hence we all have to internalize our search for those funds. We have to look within. We have to ensure that we think for a period like an year and break it up into quarters. So I'm expecting, say, the first quarter, there is going to be hardly any trickle of income. In the second quarter, maybe 25% of it starts. In the third quarter, 50%. And by the fourth quarter, around 75% of business resumes. So while we are doing that, it is important that we continue speaking to our customers.
Amazing, right? So that was April 20. In April 20, pretty much the mood of the trade had become very clear that this is what the mood is. And everyone started voicing out. But here is also what we sensed an opportunity. This was the perfect time to reach out to the trade and actually go out and help everybody and collaborate together to find a solution. So now in the HVAC trade, HVAC, when I say it is air conditioning, refrigeration, and ventilation trade, most of the MSMEs have got two methods of working. One, they're supplying to the large OEMs, or the MSMEs who are actually partners with these large OEMs to sell the products. So at this time, we said, hey, the OEMs are big stakeholders in our industry. Can we get them to speak to us and understand from them as to what are they going through? Because whatever they go through and what they plan, we have a big direct impact in their business. So we had some big heavyweights. And mind you, when we did the first event, we never thought that we would have 1,000 people who would join our event. And that's when an eye opener. We realized, oh my God, so many people are really interested in coming. And we had Mr. Java from Daikin, Mr. Gurmeet from JCI Hitachi. These are all managing directors of these large companies. Mr. Mukundan Menon from Blue Star, Mr. Chirag Bajal from Carrier, Mr. Vipin Agarwal of Samsung, and Mr. Krishna of Danfoss. And check out what they had to say. This was 2 years from now in the month of May 2020.
Increasingly clear that COVID-19 will not disappear immediately. But economy will need to be managed alongside persistent infection risks, possibly for a prolonged period, was the discipline which India has displayed, which is appreciated all over the world. We have to fight, we have to prepare ourselves, we have to live alongside COVID. So I think what Mir started with that, together we can and together we will, that approach should work. While China leads the global air conditioner markets, I don't see that why we, as an Indian, when we have such strong partners, cannot take this industry to that level.
मैं देख रहा हूँ कि पहले हम लोगों को लगता था कि B2B के अंदर आएगा या B2C के अंदर आएगा या सर्विस के अंदर आएगा या कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग में. आई थिंक फॉर HVAC अक्रॉस द इंडस्ट्री देयर इज एन इशू, अक्रॉस द इंडस्ट्री, एंड सम ऑफ देम कोई ज्यादा इंपैक्ट होगा, कोई कम इंपैक्ट होगा. आई थिंक B2B टुडे मे नॉट बी इंपैक्टेड एज मच, वो आगे जाके ज्यादा होगा. B2C टुडे इंपैक्ट इज टू हाई, आगे जाके शायद सॉफ्टन अप हो जाएगा. बिगेस्ट चैलेंज एंड व्हिच इज हर्टिंग अस द मोस्ट इज दैट a company like ours, which was relatively, I would say, I mean, it's not good to say, but we are relatively debt free. About 10 months in a year, we were debt free. Or we started facing a problem because we could not go and force our dealers to pay. And in turn, we were feeling very bad that we were not able to pay to our vendors, So So that's a big issue. We are facing a big issue, or we were at least facing till about 15 days back, very big issue on cash flow. We borrowed, we paid, but then still we...
Wrapping up in the month of January this year with a fair amount of disruption in the supply chain. And most manufacturers, including Blue Star, we were scrambling to get our material and products ready before summer. We are seeing a reasonable recovery, I would say, already in the month of May. And that's a good news for all of us.
So we can make a choice of moping around, feeling bad and sad about it, what has happened to us, or making a choice of what lies ahead of us. And I think rather, from my perspective, we have chosen the latter. There is no company differentiation after that, because what this has also brought about is the value of human life is far more than anything else. So it's not just the welfare in economic terms, which is what we will certainly talk about, because you have to look for the silver lining, like you alluded to.
I think with the advent of technology, a lot of things will change the way a contractor functions. So better planning skills for the site, for the project execution, better preparedness at contractors' end when it comes to preparing for the site. Highly skilled laborers, typically the manpower will have to keep graduating at a contractor's end, even at a manufacturer's end.
Once in a lifetime crisis. None of us have seen this, and an aspect that is also clear is that we, at least in India, we haven't seen the peak of this. So we don't know when it will peak and when it is peaking. So is there something as a trader that we can do where we can add value to the customer during the survival phase? Let's look at the revival.
That was all the big heavyweights from our industry who actually came and shared their thoughts. I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware, but this show had reached over 5,000 viewers. 5,000 people from the industry had actually seen this. Now, this is coming towards the month of June, 3 months into the pandemic. And if you realize, we were now suddenly having these skirmishes on our borders. And the government of India had come on saying that let's go Atmanirbhar. And we said, an industry like ours, which is 70% dependent on imports, I'm talking about components, and most of it is imported probably from a neighboring country. We said that was a clarion call and we all need to connect with it. And one of the people who actually stood out and went and made that big call was Sonam Wangchuk of SecMod from Ladakh. Now, Sonam, more than just being from Ladakh, if you know him, it was on him the movie Three Idiots was inspired. And he comes completely out of the box. So we reached out to him and asked him whether he could come and talk to all our members. Listen to what he had to say.
But I must tell you, I'm really feeling at home. Ajit ji has been telling me about this organization and the members and the mission. And I felt an immediate connect, because basically we are all working around thermal comfort. You may be working in air conditioning and refrigeration side of it. Me in Ladakh, where we live in a refrigerator, by the way. It's about heating solutions with the solar energy and so on. But basically where we come to meet is thermal comfort when it is about human beings. And of course, and I'm also happy to learn that you have a quest and a passion to deliberate and brainstorm about how we can move in the face of, a flooding of Chinese products, and how to become on one country and not a friendly country, and a country that has very scary designs for the world and even scarier conditions for its own people. I have biggest sympathy. I gave a heartfelt appeal or a call to the nation to boycott Made in China. But that appeal was not just because they did this military aggression. That appeal was for two reasons. Military aggressions have happened in the past also, and there was not much that citizens could do because it was purely military. Vietnam had aggression, Taiwan had aggression in South China Sea, and US Navy was engaged also. Their problem aggravates the one that they wanted to solve by picking up fights and arousing nationalism. Now it hits their economy harder and people become even more frustrated.
That was another big episode. A lot of learning. If you have not seen that, get to the Rata website, search for that event. It's there on the YouTube. You can go through the entire event, which was almost 90 minutes. Very inspiring to hear him out. And this was also the first event where three industry groups, one is the Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Manufacturers Association, and ISHRE, the Indian Society for HVAC and R Professionals, and of course RATA, the associations for MSME in the field of air conditioning and refrigeration, all of them came together to host this event. Now, moving ahead, the next month which came in, we realized that we were all kind of just being in a cocoon, just asking things only about ourselves. And these problems that we are facing because of COVID, how are other people in the other industries managing? How are they dealing with it? So we reached out to the Plastic Manufacturers Plastic Association and also the pharma industry and also the steel industry. And we asked them to share with us as to what they think and what is going on within their industry so that we could learn from them. Listen to what the presidents of these associations had to share with our members.
Those packages are only a stopgap arrangement, because if at all we do avail, and wherever and whoever is in a position to avail, the strength would lie in the repayment again, because with weaker order base at this point of time and more competition to give finished products, it is going to be difficult to envisage how repayments are going to be done. So the cash flow is a big issue, like for every industry. For till July, all industries are washed off, barring a few like packaging and pharma and other industries. But we also have been affected very severely.
Government has declared a big MSME package, and there's been a lot of noise around it that they have reached out to MSME. They've declared a package. Has it actually benefited you, Jagat bhai? Yeah.
Banks are giving money to those who don't require, and those who do require, they are not giving money. This is the situation. Recovery is our problem, and people are not going. We know that certain industries, certain people are not going to be able to repay. How do we start reimbursing today? So banks are the biggest bottleneck. They have not been giving money for the smallest of compliance issues. They have been, in fact, literally having tears in the eyes of MSME.
So it was almost clear now that we were not alone in this problem. Literally everyone was going through this whole problem. But by now we had also mobilized an entire industry to come together. And it had also become clear that we would end up having to do this event once in a month, and along with so many other activities that had come through in the association. But I was very fortunate. So all these events which were put together, I had some great friends of mine from the industry who helped me out. So if you see, it was Mihir from Mumbai, Vishal from Calcutta, Akash from Mumbai, Sachin Maheshwari from Delhi, so Kalyan Raman from Hyderabad, Paras Siroya from Mumbai, and Urvesha from Ahmedabad. So these were the Rata members and presidents from various regional committees who actually came together and helped me. So the entire 23 episodes that I managed to put together, some of them have helped me. And all of them have helped me at different levels. And I wouldn't have been able to put this together without these fine people who were there. And this is where it all became interesting, where it had become a very collaborative time, and we were all out to help each other and grow together. So thank you to all these wonderful people who continue to be very active leaders within the association, who actually took the initiative and the time out to put these events together, reaching out to speakers, putting content, and even co-hosting it along with me. Now, there's a whole group of people called as consultants. They're very influential people within our industry. And all along, these consultants are people whom you've reached out only from a technical perspective. We've seen them from a HVAC technicalities is when you actually go to these consultants. None of us have ever heard the commercial side, the entrepreneur who runs these consulting companies. What were they going through? Never had that been spoken about. So we put together some of the finest consultants together to share with us what the future of consulting looks like, what are the challenges they face, and how the industry should look ahead. Listen to what they had to share with us.
Being, coming out with any part of the world, the India is going to be a major hub for manufacturing and distribution. Now, vaccines have to be stored at a temperature of 5 to 8 degrees centigrade, right? 4 to 8 degrees centigrade or whatever it is. Now, that is going to be a major sector for warehousing, for distribution, for manufacturing. Now, do we have the right infrastructure there? Do we have the complete infrastructure of manufacture of all this? Or pharma sector will definitely have opportunity for expansion.
So anybody and everybody who wants to get into this field has to have a license and therefore has to be a graduate engineer. That is going to be the first thing that we are going to bring in. And that is what I would like to actually tell all the newcomers, all the people who are aspiring to be consultants, is that सब कुछ बाद में, पहले पढ़ाई पूरी करो.
That was the takeaways which we had. Now, having done these 6 months into the COVID, most of us sitting at home, very interesting thing happened in our association. We started increasing our membership. People just going on to our website, signing up from the industry. But also along with this, we had a growing pains challenge. For people who are sitting at home, unable to step out, doing everything just online, probably for the first time, we had another problem. Our offices, our back offices, did not have enough people to actually manage this kind of growth. And that became a very difficult thing. But yeah, one more challenge we faced. We managed to recruit people online. We managed to train them, induct them, and they continue to help and support the association, even though they haven't met with each other after having joined the organization for almost 1 year. So we're very fortunate that we put a nice team together who actually handles the back end of the association. And they have been the backbone. Some of them joined us pretty much in the COVID times. They haven't met, and then they learned everything online, and they continue to support the association. And it made a huge difference at that time. Painful process, but it was worth the effort. So that's how we actually built the association, and that's when we started going ahead. Now, having absolute clarity on where we are going now from here, we decided to pick up some very sensitive topics within our industry. And we said, if you have a problem, why don't we talk it out in the open? Because if you're going to talk it out in the open, chances are you might find a solution. You'll find a consensus around it. And one of the topics that we actually ended up picking up was women entrepreneurs. Now, pretty much this industry is considered more like a macho type, men drive it. So we want to break that myth. And we want to say that, hey, no, it's gender neutral. Women can also do fantastic work. So we brought in some of the directors, managing directors, women directors of various HVAC companies across India to come and share their thoughts. And this is what they had to say in episode number 6.
So-called gender bias, if we call it. If I'll be very naive to say that there is not a gender bias. Obviously, there is a gender bias. But yes, the degrees vary. Like we say that when we are dealing with OEMs versus how we deal with the MSME customers, it is different. Our OEM customers that we deal with are they are all MNCs. So they, anyways, on a very day-to-day basis, they interact with their women counterparts in the international space. Whereas the MSMEs, their geographical, they are limited geographically, so they do not have that exposure and interaction with too many women counterparts. So that is the difference in approach. And also,
I was trained really from the scratch. So to be very honest with you, in our family throughout, we never had a gender bias. And neither my father carried that attitude that because she is my daughter, she is going to get some different treatment in this business. So that's why he wanted to bring me right from the scratch. So I would also like to tell everybody whosoever is listening that I started with a salary of 6,000 rupees per month. whereas I was offered a salary as investment banker way in London as £2,000 a month. So this is what and when I started really from a scratch. Why I'm saying this to you? Because on the way of handling services, then projects, then production, then accounts, purchase, sales, my father taught me to build relationship inwards as well as outwards.
Awesome, right? So we did break a few glass ceilings at that time when we spoke, when you got some of these fine women managing directors of various HVAC companies to come and share their thoughts. Now, it was October in 2020, and it was a big change what happened at the association. An association which had just about 180 members and just one committee in Mumbai now had got transformed in 6 months. What we had was 12 committees in different cities. And these 12 committees had put together 100 people as committee members. And what started in April as 180 members now was about 444 members. When I say members, these are companies, please remember. Only an HVAC company becomes a member of the association, and the owner or the director is the actual representative in the association. And this started getting exciting because we had now almost 100 people. We had become the talk of town, and we were scaling. And there were multiple programs that were being held. There were so many activities pretty much online, and everyone was reaching out to each other to help each other to get out of the COVID situation. And this was also when the first unlocking started, the first wave, and there's the unlocking that had started. So in October, we kind of said that we need to pick up another topic. We were talking all about air conditioning. Another topic which was another industry which was evolving very big in our industry is the refrigeration industry. Now, very few people actually understand what refrigeration is all about. So if you are even within the industry, maybe a majority of them outside our industry cannot relate to it more than a refrigerator at home. That's not the refrigeration industry. This is the cold chain. The food that comes from the farm to your table cannot happen without the refrigeration industry. So we put a great team together, and that team included directors and MDs like Mr. Ajay Shah of Nuvu Conair, Mr. Rajat Gupta of Tessol, Neeraj Sheth of True Frost, Mr. Sudhir Kumar of Frick India, Mr. Soji Abraham of Rhinac, and Mr. Shiv Kumar Nair from Cold Storages Consulting. So this was the 7th episode, which we now are talking about refrigeration. Listen to what they had to share during this interaction.
Giving service was a big issue because quarantines in different states. When you have to send a service engineer for servicing, he had to be quarantined for 7 days, 14 days. That was really a difficult phase for a service thing. Then the virtual platform was really explored well. We were never used to this virtual platform. Now we started giving service also through virtual platform. Ask them to show the part, how to do it, because like Kerala and all were not allowing without a 14-day quarantine. So we changed a seal with our in-house technician who was in Kerala for a screw compressor by showing videos to him, who has never changed a seal for a screw compressor. So this is one thing which is thing, and also all the meetings we can
lobbying by the local manufacturer. We're all aware of that. But at the end of it, whether it is a government, they have to be very, very pragmatic in what they do. When it comes to, it's one thing to say that room air conditioners could fall in that category, but it is exactly the opposite. Another thing to say, club everything under refrigeration with the same handle. The reason is that the refrigeration, particularly I see the refrigeration industry from the prism of commercial refrigeration. We have our own problems of voltage fluctuations and highly tropicalized conditions, very hot kitchens and what have you. So I think the idea is to understand what works in here. I would hesitate to say that the government could be looking to do the same theory on room air conditioners that they have done on room air conditioners on the rest of the commercial refrigeration equipment. We are far from it. We do not have an ecosystem of
item a person will spend on. So Fortunately, refrigeration is associated with food preservation. So basically, any kind of food product which needs to, fortunately, our agriculture is not taken a hit in the pandemic, and our agriculture growth is as usual, or maybe it will be 3 to 4% more this year. So definitely, and also our milk segment is also having a growth.
Comes under three categories: grant scheme, subsidy scheme, and interest subvention scheme. Mainly, if you look at it in the food industry, MOFPI guides it. You have MOFPI and Agriculture Ministry controlling these two segments of it. MOFPI is MOFPI and under agriculture, there is a scheme called MIDH. Both are grant in aid scheme.
It was all about refrigeration. Now, when this event was done for the first time in refrigeration, usually in our industry, when you do programs on refrigeration, it was always sheer technical programs. Nobody spoke about the commercial side. And here was Sense and Opportunity, and Akash Verma, who actually helped put this event. Both of us got together and we spoke quite a bit about it. And we said, listen, we need to take the refrigeration story bigger, show it out to our entire industry. So we said, okay. And let's talk about what's got to do with milk and fish. What's the role of the refrigeration industry in fisheries and dairies? And we put in an interesting team together, which is from MPDA, we had Mr. Srijit PT, Mr. Anand Verma from Ananda Foods, and we had Mr. Amit Vyas, the director of Amul, who was there with us. He had some very interesting stuff to share, and it was a huge learning. Listen to what he had to say in this episode.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, Vishal. So
250 million liters of milk per day. So refrigeration plays a major role because it is almost around 50% of our electricity bill, which comes in the entire dairy industry. So this is where we have been continuously focusing and bringing up our efficiencies and systems. See, over a period of time, it has been defined, a lot of development and things have happened. Energy efficient systems have come in dairies, also in refrigeration in particular. Here we are talking about how can we do refrigeration at the village level. When I say village level, means when the milk comes out from the udder of a cow or a buffalo, how can we chill it? It's a challenge at this point of time. We ensure that the cattle feed supply reaches to the farmer. We ensure that the payment to the farmer has been made in time. We ensure that the health of the animals are being taken care of. So if you see the growth across India, the milk procurement has been going up at a very good pace. As you rightly said, the growth is there. Compressors or the valves or the pipelines or everything. We have to work very much on the system. Like if you see your mobile can be charged anywhere by plugging. Now you have electric bike, go and charge it somewhere. Now, why not the milk taken out from the udder gets chilled by the liquid? We are working on that. We have some kind of we say that it's not a bulk chilling unit, but it is another kind of a chilling unit with a different liquid that can be just plugged in and can get charged, so that the milk is, because we collect so much of milk where each farmer pours 2 liters or 3 liters. That's all. And with this, the collection is to the tune of 250, 2.5 crore liters of milk. So
that was 8 episodes. We had covered air conditioning, the challenges in COVID, and we had also covered kind of a bit of refrigeration. The third vertical of our industry is all about ventilation. And COVID had actually got us to talk about ventilation in a very big way. And what is ventilation all about? I mean, it's fresh air, right? It's available free. What is so big science about ventilation? Big misunderstood and ignored by almost everybody in the industry. I don't think within the industry, but as much as from people who are not from the industry, who do not give importance to indoor air quality or air quality in general. So we had a fabulous team of speakers, Mr. Sachin Maheshwari of Carrier, Mr. Vinay Botra from Spectrum Filtration, Mr. Prabhu from Rayvac Systems, a lot about kitchen ventilation. I mean, we go and eat food at the restaurants All these chefs work in that kitchen. How do they continue to stand on their feet and work without making sure they sweat and they can continue to remain there? Very interesting stuff. And Mr. Nishant Gupta from Degree Day, Mr. Dinesh from KNND Associates. So these gentlemen shared their thoughts on ventilation.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, Vishal. So talking about the ventilation industry or the mechanical ventilation industry, as we mentioned, it has actually not got its due prominence over the years. Possibly that we got lost between that H and AC. And probably I would urge Rata, we should now for some time start calling it as VHAC. And possibly some people believe that what is naturally available, why should it be paid for?
Those are sold by the capacity of water that it can hold, or maybe the blower size, which is no way a way to identify the capacity or size the products. Unfortunately, our country had been following West, and that's the reason that this kind of technology has never got the attention which it actually deserved. Our forefathers had been used to living in a ventilated spaces, and maybe evaporative cooling was known from the time when chicks were being used, and various passive cooling technologies were used way back in 100 years or 1,000 years ahead, before also. So overall awareness on the design and implementation has not been there. You won't find any MNC coming into this, barring few who are maybe within Asia, because this kind of technology is not suitable for the West.
One has to become a contractor. No person from fresh out of engineering college or MBA degree will become a contractor, right? So he would have worked in some air conditioning firm for a couple of years or whatever number of years. With that experience, he gets into contracting. And more so, we have seen project engineers from a particular company getting into contracting. And the exposure of that particular engineer would be to the extent of only project execution.
So, honestly speaking, every business, there's nothing called an easy business. Every business, be it your manufacturing, trading, we've heard about the contracting story, they're all difficult, right? But you find a way out. So we've been into manufacturing for 30 years. And so I'm surely going to propagate that, yes, manufacturing is something which is surely, a way forward. I think if India has seen last 20 years being seen as a service provider kind of image, probably next few years would be for the manufacturing.
Consumption and filters contribute a lot to energy costs because of pressure drops. However, we've not been able to convince the industry that there is a need for better air filtration in their systems. And that's why we kind of took a back step. But in recent times, we're finding more and more people are again interested in getting qualified air filters. And therefore, we have again started the...
because what is happening is the chef is finding there's a huge shortage of manpower, and the main chef or the head chef wants to retain. I'm talking about the middle level and the lower level restaurants, and the main chef is in charge of the total productivity. And today the main chef is pushing the owners to invest in good ventilation system. That is what we have found. It's a great change happening for the good of the people and good of the industry also.
Amazing, right? So to all my viewers here, I just realized that we've got lots of viewers here. Thank you for joining us for this final episode. And I know this is being live streamed into multiple social media channels like Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If any of these events, what you learned, and you are finding it interesting and want to actually deep dive because something you want to relate to, get to the Rata website, rataindia.com. Go under the event section. All the events are available there. Go back there and see it at your convenience, or if you want to share it with somebody, you can just share that link. Okay, now moving from air conditioning, refrigeration, and ventilation, we realize that there's another important challenge that the industry is facing. The blood in our system is extremely important, right? That keeps us alive. In the air conditioning industry, in air conditioning and refrigeration systems, the refrigerant, or what you loosely called in the open market as gas, is the actual lifeline of that industry. And there are huge challenges around it, misunderstandings, lack of knowledge, and the confusions around it. So we said it's high time that we actually figured out what's all about refrigerants. And we had two fabulous speakers. one Mr. Kapil Singhal from BP RefCool and Mr. Bhushan Donde from Cora Global. Listen to what they had to say during the session.
हुई है from the CFCs से लेकर HCFCs. CFC तो 2008 में इंडिया ने ऑलरेडी फेज आउट कर दिया है, but then now still we are using R22 which comes under HCFC, जिसका अभी फेज आउट शेड्यूल चालू है. Then now we are using all the HFCs which is mainly 134A और जो 400 series के gases है. But then all these HFCs also having the global warming issues. So industry has now moved from HFCs to HFOs, which is hydrofluoroolefins.
होता है और जो गैसेस मेनली इंडिया में लगती हैं जैसे 32 और 134A और 22 ये इंडिया में ऑलरेडी प्रोड्यूस होती हैं. लेकिन अभी जब ये इंडिया में प्रोड्यूस होती हैं देयर इज ओनली वन कंपनी जो इन्हें प्रोड्यूस करती है और 22 को कुछ और भी कंपनीज हैं जो प्रोड्यूस करती हैं. लेकिन आपको ये मान के चलना होगा कि दीज आर लाइक व्हेन जब आप ये गैसेस को बनाते हो तो यू नीड टू मेक ए वेरी बिग इन्वेस्टमेंट एंड जो इसमें से गैस जब निकलती है तो अगर वो वॉल्यूम नहीं हो, वॉल्यूम बोलेंगे कि किसी भी एक गैस का अगर आप वो 20-25 हजार टन का प्लांट नहीं लगाते तो उसका प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी नहीं आती. वो प्लांट किसी दूसरे बड़े प्लांट से compete नहीं कर पाता इंटरनेशनली. डीजल से गैसेस को कंपेयर किया. सो पेट्रोल और डीजल में फिर भी देयर इज वे फॉर यू टू टेस्ट, वेयर एज रेफ्रिजरेंट गैस में मैं ये नहीं बोलूंगा कि टेस्टिंग पॉसिबल नहीं है, डेफिनेटली इट इज पॉसिबल टेक्निकली, बट जब भी कोई भी including OEMs, most of the OEMs in India, OEM means एयर कंडीशनर और कार मैन्युफैक्चरर्स जो रेफ्रिजरेंट को लेते हैं, सब लोग गैस एक विश्वास पे लेते हैं, क्योंकि जब आप गैस खरीद रहे हो तो ना तो आप उसको देख सकते, ना छू सकते, ना सूंघ सकते, वो तो सिलेंडर में पैक है. अब सिलेंडर कैसा भी हो, अब उसके अंदर जो है वो तो जब सिस्टम में चली जाएगी तभी आपको पता चलेगा. और कमाल की बात यह है कि जब वो सिस्टम में चली जाएगी तो भी जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको उसी समय पता चले, क्योंकि ऐसे बहुत सारी लुक अलाइक चीजें आती हैं जो आपको स्वाद तो वही देंगी शाही पनीर का, पर होगा पनीर उसमें बिल्कुल भी नहीं. जो छोटी सी कैन है उसको वैक्यूम करके गैस फिल करते हैं, दोनों में एक टेक्नोलॉजी का बैरियर है. तो आप कभी भी उस लेवल का वैक्यूम जो आप एक सिलेंडर में कर सकते हो वो आप कैन में नहीं कर सकते.
Amazing. There was a lot of information that these two gentlemen shared with us. Now, this is the month of Feb, right? And Feb 21. And this is the second lockdown. Now, please remember, summer season is extremely important for the HVAC&R industry because almost 60% of the business happens during this primarily for air conditioning companies. An entire year had gone, no business happened. Everyone was really looking forward for the next season, at least to recover and get out of COVID. And come Feb was the second lockdown. And if you know, in India, this lockdown was brutal. It struck a fear in all of us. And I remember getting calls from all across the industry saying that, ab kya hoga yaar? Waise bhi is industry mein maza nahi hai yaar. And starting with this whole thing, I might just want to shut it off and go away kind of a stuff. So this is when we said, no, we are going to bring in some fascinating stories. People who have gone through this grind and people who have lived up to these challenges and build great companies in the field of air conditioning and refrigeration. So the first story that we got was Mr. Kamlesh Mehta, who started his company, a manufacturing company of AHUs called as Citizen Industries, which got acquired by Daikin. And this is what he had to say when he shared his journey.
कुछ तो शुरू करना है, and that all basically started from the hobby of making the models in the school. So तब से इंडस्ट्री डालने का तो शौक था. So when I was working in utility engineers, again, I got attracted to this field, and then I decided that no, whatever I want to do for my own business, I must do something in air conditioning only. So then I started first of all, manufacturing the window air conditioners, as you mentioned in my this thing. My biodata, we started manufacturing air conditioners for a company called Blue Star, and it was written in the nameplate also that manufactured by so and so industries and sold by Blue Star. So that is how I started my. So you should make proper arrangement for your finance, when you start your business, and you should be ready for the financial, losses or shocks. Like in first year only, one of the customers, he did not pay a large amount. That was 50% of my annual turnover. It was not a big amount, it was about 2.75 lakhs, but he did not pay. And then I almost decided to go back to my job. I told my father that dad dekho ye pehle saal mein, he said that have you made a big loss? I said no, not a big loss, but at the end of the year I don't think I have earned anything. The thing was that we were entering for the first time in the field of double skin AHUs, and their project was completely designed with the double skin AHUs by some very renowned pharma consultant in Mumbai. And we did not have an experience in double skin AHUs, though we made the AHUs for some small jobs and all that. That fear will automatically will come over that fear. Believe me, many big challenges came at later part of our business also. But not only me, even my people were completely stable. Okay, ठीक है, आएगी difficulty देखा जाएगा. You never get disturbed. Once you pass through certain difficulties in your career, it will automatically give you the strength of overcoming any difficulties. So
Amazing.
it's only a time, you will
That was Mr. Kamlesh Mehta. Now, coming March, everyone had got to feel that this is not happening, and we are going to for a second year in a row, we're going to lose our season. So we said, okay, let's reach out to Mr. Tyagarajan, who was the managing director of Blue Star, to put some hope back into all the small businesses that depend on these large OEMs. And this is what Mr. Tyagarajan had to share.
It takes to run this particular business, specifically air conditioning and refrigeration, very well. I can only share my experience. So some part is going to be in general in running the business, some with respect to the Indian economy and what to look for. Some to look at this particular industry, as an important stakeholder, what probably you should be open to and avail of as the opportunities open up. We can look forward to a 12% GDP growth, and India will be the largest growing economy in the world. So you have to also worry about FY23. So though I am not the proponent of fast forwarding anything, especially in this particular situation, our stakeholders, I would like to apologize for having put them through some difficult times. They were dependent on us. We didn't grow in the process. They wouldn't have grown. Apologies. Two, in quite a few cases, we would not have paid on time, especially in April, May. I apologize for that. And so as far as Blue Star is concerned, number one, so what solutions you can offer to manufacturing? So, for example, enterprises like Sea Comforts should be looking at, you will also be doing electrical plumbing for the manufacturing, because these are going to be fast track projects. Everybody is going to be in a hurry. Huge investments will be taking place across the country. So therefore, manufacturing is the first sector to look at. Ice cream will continue to grow. So there is no doubt about it at all. The processed food, ready to cook, ready to fry, there is quite a bit of expansion that is taking place in the capacity. We will start publishing, like the arising out of PLI, who is going to manufacture what. Say for example, chocolate itself, the capacity will go up, which means there are quite a bit of opportunities in the chocolate cooling area. It is the question of the profitability of the industry itself. Look at all automobile manufacturers, EBITDA margin as a whole. Okay, it's all in double digit. Compared with that, look at us. the average EBITDA margin will be less than 5%. All people put together. The members of RATA, with they are the backbone. It is like seeding and watering and waiting for it to bloom. And the years of hard work of this industry, I am hopeful that the next 5 years will be the time you will harvest all the hard work.
He put in a lot of hope to those members who were listening to him. And it was very painful. We had completed 1 year now into the association, second season lost. Small businesses find it very difficult to survive like this. But within the 1 year now that we had completed in the entire Business Chunautiyan program, there was something very interesting that was also happening within the association. There was a forum focused only on manufacturing that was formed, and manufacturers, companies within the HVAC industry who were into manufacturing had come together as a separate forum, which was headed by Sachin Maheshwari. And we decided to actually bring out one of the most important things, not just manufacturing for India. How do you actually manufacture for the world? How do you actually manufacture to export? And a beautiful team, a fantastic team of Mr. Akash Deep Agarwal from Greenheck, Mr. Priyank Garg, who's the managing director of Advanced Valves, Mr. Bhattacharya, who's the vice president for Paharpur Cooling, and Mr. Varun Pawav, who's the president for DRI, Desiccant Rotors India. Was a great panel was put together who shared their thoughts on manufacturing for
from both domestic as well as the export market. I mean, initially in 2007, 2008, people had a certain reservation about accepting material from China or from India and all. But over the past 6 years, 7 years, I've seen market getting changed. That acceptability is no longer a question. Till such time we are able to maintain those certifications which are mandatory in those part of the world. I mean, every country has their own set. We have to get civil defense approval, registration with them and all those things. So until unless we are meeting those criteria, Make in India is by and large not a problem. I think if I have to put a percentage, I'll say 99% of the jobs we don't have a problem in getting them India Make acceptable.
Brand relation quality concerns you have, but the technical should not be a hurdle. So the first thing in my mind is always to make sure your product is fitting the market and fitting the market specifications. Of course, one needs to understand that you're going to be exporting to a country and you're going to a place where there are already probably players in the market that have an established running business. So if you're coming in, you need to have some value proposition that's going to make people come to you. So think about that, whether it is differentiation, whether it is innovation, whether it is better value or a better price, or just what proposition you bring to the table. That I think is the number one thing to do.
Complain about bureaucracy in India and ease of doing business. We are operating in countries like Brazil where they are 10 times more bureaucratic than us. So I think if the will is there to export, the government will assist you. There are schemes, but I think at the end of the day, our approach, my approach has been not to rely on the government schemes. We've taken benefit of several of them. And again, this is something that we take as a hard cash flow.
Simple example, Indian government, I think it was in 2019 January, prohibited the use of IE1 electric motors, right? So minimum which can be sold in Indian market is IE2. Now for my export market, I cannot even procure an IE1 motor now. So when I'm competing with in Middle East with European manufacturers or with some other manufacturers, they are or with the local Middle East manufacturers, they are using an IE1 motor. I have to compete with them using an IE2 motor, which is 10 to 12% more expensive. Yes, but if I mean, as I said, the China volumes are unimaginable. And then you see their infrastructure, their factory, the cost of producing good is also lower than what we do it in India. And it's only because of volume. I mean, if I have to make 100,000 fans every year, from my current level of making about 12,000 fans in a year, I mean, my input cost will also come down, right?
And obviously, also it makes business fun again, because if you're just domestically, you're dealing with the same stakeholders day in, day out. This opens up whole new travel opportunities, meeting international people, and I think it brings about energy and fun back to the business. So I think my quick message is that everyone should aspire to do, even if as a first target, it's just 5% of your total revenue.
Awesome. It is a myth. They say that only technocrats, it's a technical field, only technocrats can do this, run air conditioning and refrigeration business. So we brought you a story of a person from a farming background who went on to set up a public listed refrigeration business, Mr. Chandrakant Bhai of iSmith. Very interesting. Listen to what he had to say. तो स्वीट शॉप या फार्मिंग का बिजनेस था, आप एयर कंडीशनिंग और रेफ्रिजरेशन HVAC फील्ड में कैसे पहुंच गए सर?
एक्चुअली एग्रीकल्चर डिप्लोमा करने के बाद मैंने 1986 में फर्टिलाइजर मार्केटिंग में काम किया। तो 86 और 86-7 और 88 तक गुजरात में सूखा था, पानी नहीं था, तो एग्रीकल्चर ही नहीं था, तो फर्टिलाइजर बेचना भी काफी डिफिकल्ट था। तो मैं जिस कंपनी के साथ काम कर रहा था, उन लोगों ने बिजनेस डाइवर्ट किया, वो लोग डीप फ्रीजर मतलब कॉमर्शियल रेफ्रिजरेशन में शिफ्ट हुए। तो मैं एक अच्छा एम्प्लॉइज था उनके साथ, तो उनको लगा कि इनको एग्रीकल्चर की प्रोडक्ट भी बेच सकता है और इंजीनियरिंग देंगे तो वो भी कर पाएगा। तो इन लोगों ने मुझे वो भी अपॉर्चुनिटी दिया, तो फिर ऐसे शुरुआत हो गई। ऐसे कोई प्लानिंग से मैं रेफ्रिजरेशन या HVAC में नहीं आया हूँ, लेकिन इंसिडेंटली आ गया हूँ। लेकिन लगता है कि जो हुआ वो अच्छा हुआ। 15-16 से उस टाइम पर SME प्लेटफॉर्म लॉन्च हुआ था, तो हम लोगों ने कई सारे एडवाइजर से मीटिंग किया। प्लेटफॉर्म का प्लस माइनस हम लोगों ने समझा कि इसमें क्या प्लस माइनस है। एक्चुअली फंड रेजिंग तो एक कोई प्रायोरिटी नहीं होता है जो लोग लिस्टेड होते हैं, तो ये भी हमारा पर्पस था, फंड रेजिंग तो था। और हम लोग लिस्टेड होने के बाद देखा कि कई सारी अपनी इंडस्ट्रीज की कंपनी 10 साल 20 साल पहले 5 करोड़ 10 करोड़ के फंड के लिए भी लिस्टेड हुई है। तो हो सकता है उसका 5-10 करोड़ फंड का पर्पस नहीं था, लेकिन आज जाके देखते हैं तो उस कंपनी का वैल्यूएशन जो है वो 100 टाइम 200 टाइम है। तो हमारा भी पर्पस ये है कि विजिबिलिटी बने और एक सही वैल्यूएशन मिले। मुझे लगता है हम लोग रेफ्रिजरेशन टाइटल लेके जाएंगे तो वो शायद कन्विंस नहीं होंगे, लेकिन हम लोग एग्रीकल्चर और फूड प्रोसेसिंग के लिए हम लोग बेसिक नीड है, उनको प्रमोट किया जाए और वो लोग हमारे बिगर नहीं बढ़ सकते। अगर उनको बढ़ाना है तो इनडायरेक्ट कम पढ़ा हुआ आदमी, घर से गांव से आया हुआ आदमी ये कर सकता है। तो हमारे यहाँ कई सारे लोग आते हैं, हमें लगता है कि आप लोग तो कई सारा कर सकते हैं, 30 साल में हमारे से 30 गुना आगे जा सकते हैं। तो सबको करना चाहिए, क्योंकि हर एंटरप्रेन्योर को अपने लिए नहीं देश के लिए करना चाहिए। इतनी बड़ी आबादी को हमें एम्प्लॉयमेंट देना है, इकोनॉमी को बढ़ाना है, और अगर देश को सही में आगे लेके जाना है तो लोगों को अपने लिए नहीं, सोसाइटी के लिए भी कोई ना कोई एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप काम करना चाहिए, जिनसे हम लोग सही में देश सेवा कर पाएंगे।
If you have missed this episode, you should go back and see this entire episode. Chandrakant Bhai is fantastic to hear. He speaks straight out of his heart, and it's very inspiring. Over the last few years at the association, Mihir, one of our key members of the association, who's also the vice president, had actually worked on something called as the next generation. And he had put together this forum called as Next Gen, and that was primarily the second generation of the business and what are the challenges they face when they join their fathers or their business of their parents. And we had some very interesting youngsters, second generation entrepreneurs like Mr. Anurid Baliga, he's from RS Kulkarni Consulting, Mr. Roshan Siroya from Cruise, Nisha Nair from VKA Power from Bangalore, and Mr. Pratik Bengani from Shravan Refair, also from Bangalore. Check out what these youngsters, what are the kind of passion they bring to the business.
And then we ensure that those steps are being followed. Coming to the brand side, I think hats off to my dad for what he's done, what he's created, and what he's continuing to create in terms of inspiring people through Rata or through the company. And I think one thing is clear, that we I mean, for all of us here and whoever is listening to us as part of the next generation, I don't think we should even think that we can come close to our fathers, but we should have to believe in ourselves that we have to create an image separate or that is complementing them. So since day one, I think when I've joined the business, I've been very clear that I think my father has a different set of strengths. The senior management has a different set of strengths. What value additions am I going to get to make this an organization? Otherwise, it's just going to be a single person making decisions.
Thing about this industry is it's constantly changing. You cannot hold on to one skill set that you have. It gets outdated very quickly. I mean, gone are the days where our fathers did one trade for 60 years and they were very good at it, right? Like today, like if by in all studies, every 6 years your skill set gets obsolete, and so the industry also changes. That's how technology is playing such a big part. So the one of the key ideas was to integrate these verticals and expand those horizons within those verticals. Yeah, so I hope I answered.
Absolutely, Nisha. And I mean,
I'm not going to complain what they did was wrong. I'm just going to say that, as Nisha said, we need to keep evolving, right? How are you going to evolve to ensure that your business sustains? And as I said earlier, and what you said about me, that I believe that the business has to run successfully without any individual involvement. It has to just keep running, functioning like a well-oiled machine, right? So in terms of how do we analyze these threats, right? Like apart from competition that is going to keep coming up, it's always going to be there, right? Honestly, we've discussed both vertical, forward and backward integrations. How do we figure with the scale that we already operate at, how can we become bigger and better at it? This is one of the things that we keep discussing.
It has been a challenge for me because it has all the things you have said have been applicable. But sometimes I just want to firstly step back and be grateful for a lot of things that I've received on a platter. So one thing is the reputation itself of the firm, then a strong team, strong system or structure or whatever you'd like to call it, and a strong client base. So you have received a lot of things that you need to be grateful for.
कि हमने तो आइडिया दे दिया, अरे मैंने कहा था ये करना चाहिए, हम कर नहीं पाए. तो एक ये तरीका होता है स्टार्टिंग में, बिकॉज लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स इन द बिजनेस आर एलियन फॉर अस, कि हमने पहले वो कभी किया नहीं है, हमको एक्सपोजर नहीं है, तो वी से कि नहीं हम कर सकते हैं, वी कैन ट्राई, व्हाई डोंट वी ट्राई दिस. बट वो जब नहीं होता देन वी इट्स वेरी इजी फॉर अस टू से ओ आई डिडंट हैव द चांस टू डू इट. बट जो आपके कंट्रोल में है, जो व्हाट यू कैन ऐड वैल्यू टू, यू आइडेंटिफाई दोज 1 2 3 थिंग्स. With time, 3 months, 6 months, 7 months, whatever, maybe a year, you ensure कि आपने जो कहा था वो हुआ और उसका result उनको दिखा.
Is going to grow. I mean, we've had a couple of, I mean, the past 3-4 years have been quite slow and difficult for every business, but the hope is tomorrow is going to be brighter and and it's very satisfying as an entrepreneur, as a young adult, to be part of this growth. I mean, when you contribute to your country, you are generating employment, you pay GST, you pay so many other taxes. So in a large way, it is very satisfying at the end of the day to be part of this growth, and I'm hoping that good things are ahead.
Have this thing called FOLO, fear of losing out. They believe that if they don't actively participate in the business, they are going to lose out on the profits that they could possibly earn, or they'll not be able to maximize their profits if they delegate, right? So that's one thing that I'd like to change.
So in our industry, we've heard about very large multinationals who set out manufacturing, big brands, and that's how consumers realize. How many of us actually knew that the largest manufacturer of air conditioners doesn't even have a brand and literally manufactures for every big brand in this country? And that was an eye-opener, not just for people who are not from the industry, but also for people from our industry, when Mr. Jasbir Singh of Amber Enterprises shared his journey of manufacturing in air
conditioners. Who's really focused on QCDS, which I call quality, cost, delivery, and safety and innovation. The reason why companies were going out of India and bringing those components were that a high quality supplier was missing in the country, and that also in vicinity to them. So we started setting up plants in vicinity to customer clusters. Normally our factories are a kilometer or half a kilometer away from our key customers. Game changer for for the component ecosystem of HVACs. I'll take you a little bit back. We have traveled as an industry, RAC industry has traveled a journey of few lakh units 20 years back to almost about 7 million units. But unfortunately, in 20 years, we still are importing compressors, we still are importing motors, PCBAs, copper, aluminium. So the reason, if we see why these are being imported, there are only two reasons. First is, of course, the price disability, and second is the lack of economies of scale. Head of manufacturing, I think it's a beautiful space, and industry want a good suppliers, and now, fortunately, bankers are supportive. Interest rates have come down. There are loans which are available for long tenures. So earlier things were more challenging. When we started, I remember 17% interest rates, and the tenure of loan बहुत ज़्यादा सिफारिश लगती थी तो 4 साल का मिलता था.
To do that, being a OEM supplier is indeed commendable. But I would also say, and you would have seen some of the comments, and we were discussing when Mr. Jasbir lost his connection. I think what really stood out today was the candid approach, the straightforward approach with which Mr. Jasbir interacted. I think the biggest strength is the clarity of thought that he has, the vision, and I think so that's what has led to this wonderful journey for Amber, and I'm sure it has still a long way to go, and they'll keep inspiring us and encouraging the entire industry to move in a similar fashion. So fantastic, and I think thank you, Mr. Jasbir, for your valuable time today.
Thank you, Sachin. And
Well, if most of you are aware, our industry is taxed at a GST of 28%. Sin tax. Why? Because we are luxury, right? Air conditioning is a privilege of few. Very few people understand that's because the ignorance that you have about air conditioning, refrigeration, or the HVAC in our industry. We're a nation building industry. And I'll give you a simple example. During the COVID times, you converted open grounds into ICU hospitals. How could you have done that without the active contribution from the air conditioning industry? The world's largest vaccination program is happening in India. Most successful, of course. We've all managed to beat the COVID. Could you have actually beat that COVID or do this largest vaccination program without the active participation of the refrigeration industry? Impossible. We're a nation building industry. So we actually got together and we put some fabulous entrepreneurs who stepped out during the COVID and helped in the COVID vaccination program. And we had Mr. Samir Verma, the founding member of Tuscan Ventures, Mr. Tanvi Nayak, who is the director of Rima Transport, that's a reefer business, Mr. Jaishankar Natarajan, who's the assistant vice president at Godrej Medical, and Mr. Jaisal Doshi, who's the deputy CEO at B Medical. Listen to how they took on the challenge of COVID vaccination.
A white paper together for setting up Tuscan. And one of the things that we always found with cold chain was that the businesses and the solutions were, for want of a better word, subscale, which is the reason why large enterprises weren't emerging from the country. And this was really what one of the problem statements that we sort of put out back in 2010. And after having spent close to a year meeting with users of cold chain, as well as companies that were manufacturing components for cold storages, trucks, small warehouses, so on and so forth, we sort of put together a little plan which essentially said, let's build out a platform which allows products as well as industries to sort of lean on to offer complex supply chain services.
It's brought us a lot of global attention because prior to COVID, our products were used for vaccinating roughly half of the world's children. And so we carried an extremely heavy responsibility, and that reflects in our mission of saving lives using reliable and innovative technology. And we actually started off as part of a much larger group, which I'm sure most people are familiar with, which is Electrolux. So our origins are in Electrolux, and for more than 3 decades, we were known as Electrolux Medical Systems.
And now, knowing this is going to happen, we got back and figured out, the agility and speed of response would be the key to kind of attacking this whole problem. And we knew, having done so much of surveys within India, what was lacking in the cold chain, and we knew that there will be huge amount of procurement which will suddenly happen, because it has to fill this void very quickly, and it has to kind of be up and running as quickly as possible. Now, given this fact, we had figured out 3 challenges. One was capacity expansion within our own plant, with our vendor partners. We figured out that going whole hog across all the SKUs was not the solution. We sat together, understood what exactly India needed, where it was be required, what kind of literage sizes would actually be needed, and we took a hedge that these are the few areas where we will tool up and expand our manufacturing line, because your jigs and fixtures for foaming setup was required, and they were quite expensive. And then we had to have this conveyors line. So capacity expansion probably started getting rolled out somewhere in January, and we quickly started putting in. We didn't wait for economic survey and financials. We just invested, and we started off immediately. And the second thing was on our ability to deliver guaranteed performance and reliability.
If we keep this specific to what happened in the COVID, the challenges we faced in COVID, firstly, Akash, just to add on to the question that you said, that transportation is still not gotten the status of an industry in India yet, and that is the biggest challenge that we face, that we are not recognized as a industry as of yet. And even though we are such an essential part of the entire ecosystem and the entire supply chain of essential products, medicines, now that we've been in a pandemic, we know what is really important, what parts play so important. Even though everything is shut, transport needs to be on.
Awesome. So by now we've been getting a lot of emails and messages from a lot of members from our trade, all primarily saying that, telling us suggestions as to what kind of, programs that we should have. And they wanted to actually get back on entrepreneurial journeys. So we got a fabulous story from Chennai that was of Mr. Kamdar of
the fan business. But we didn't have any technology. I had no background. I had just done some reverse engineering of 1 or 2 fans. And then a few other customers gave us some samples to reverse engineer. And we did that. So I realized that, long ago my father told me, if you want to go to heaven, then you have to die. Nobody else will die for you. So I realized if I had to make fans and sell fans, I had to know something about fans myself. So through a friend, I approached Professor Venkat Rayulu from IIT. He was the head of the thermal turbo machining laboratory in IIT. And I said, sir, I'm not an engineer, but I need you to teach me about the fundamentals about fan engineering, how to make a good fan, how to test a good fan. And believe you me, over the next 1 year, I studied so hard under his tutorship. It was like private tuitions, that I had never studied like that throughout my life. What I used to do for 10 days before the exam, I did through the whole of 365 days. The first thing about all these government organizations, public sector undertaking, including railways, is that they are bound by the L1 rule.
Yeah.
Right? They can only place order on the lowest quotation from an approved from a technically qualified supplier, right?
True.
So what I used to do is, even before I give a quotation, I used to make a visit to the department, meet the concerned people, understand in depth their technical requirement, number one. Then I would meet the commercial and the engineering side, the quality side, and find out what are their quality requirements. More importantly, did they have any problem with previous suppliers?
Okay.
If yes, what was that problem? See, long ago, somebody told me that excellence is a moving target, right? So if you excel today, you cannot stop there. Stagnation is death.
Amazing.
Now, so long as you have the energy and the resources, you must continue to be a contributing member of the society. This was my philosophy. So I need to continue. To me, what has worked is that I had a vision for 10 years. Every time I had a vision where I want to be after 10 years. And I worked towards that goal single-mindedly. Have enough confidence in yourself that if this customer is gone, you still have the capability to find another customer. Your product is good, definitely some good customer will come to you. Even a vegetable vendor, if he is buying a tomato at 10 rupees, he is not going to give it to you at 9 rupees. He will allow it to go to waste, but he won't give it to you. You must have self-respect for yourself.
Episode number 18. Fabulous. He speaks out of his heart. So if you haven't seen it, just go and see it. Whenever you feel low and you've stressed out on business, you must listen to some of these episodes. Very inspiring, and they'll turn the whole mood for you. Acquisitions in our industry, not much heard of. Is it really? Till we actually put on a great panel of speakers of multinational companies, managing directors of multinational companies and large companies who shared their acquisition stories. They acquired MSMEs in the field of HVAC&R. And these were Mr. Devraj who's the MD of Flackwood Group, Mr. Ashok Das Damodaran of Systemair, and Mr. Prashant Joshi of HMX ATE Enterprises. Listen to what they had to see on their view of the industry and the MSMEs in this industry.
So the easy way to get access and to scale up in the market is, to go for aggressive, acquisition strategy. So Systemair is a company which is having very aggressive growth strategy, and there are two ways of going with it when you talk about the growth. One is organic growth, which you get it with the sales, the increase in sales, what you get, but the other one is inorganic growth, which comes from the acquisition. So when a company is having a very aggressive growth strategy, the only way to achieve that growth is by going for acquisitions. And we have been doing that over the years. We have been very successful globally in acquiring as well as integrating that business in a very successful manner to our business. So all the acquisitions
ticked all the right boxes for AT to acquire. The technology that HMX had developed was not in kind. It was green technology, was sustainable. And if you look at it from today's perspective, it was also based on 100% fresh air for the conditioned space. So AT actually started with an investment in HMX. It was not a direct acquisition. AT initially invested in HMX and acquired a management say. HMX was basically started by technocrats around year 2000 who had a vision about indirect evaporative cooling and had developed the technology. However, in those days, like most of the startups used to fare, the initial funding dried up very soon, and they were in need of additional funding. The product was good. The application of the product in industrial cooling was picking up. But then to scale up the operation, the founders needed more capital. And on the other hand, those days, AT, in line with the dreams of its new generation management, were scouting for not-in-kind, green.
In case of mergers and acquisitions,
and therefore India is becoming a highly sought after destination for merger and acquisition deals. The volume of merger and acquisition deals has been trending upwards, particularly in the field of pharmaceutical, FMCG, finance, telecom, automobile, and metals. And yes, the export for HVAC industry is also very good. That is what we see. However, HVAC industry's landscape is going through changes.
Amazing, right? Now, while we had actually heard from companies who had acquired MSMEs, we decided, why don't we bring out stories of people who actually exited, who sold the business? And we had three fabulous entrepreneurs, Mr. Pratap Kidwani of Rolla Star, Mr. Bhagwan Srinivasan of Sauter Race, and Mr. Sachin Maheshwari of Carrier, who had actually sold businesses. Hear them out, and this is what they had when they shared their stories.
Don't get into the business if you think you're going to be selling it. You won't be able to do justice to it.
Did we build a company with the focus on future acquisition by some multinational? Absolutely a big no. Even the idea may not have crossed our minds when we started. You know, those early 90s, the word startup, venture capital, angel investors, IPO route, perhaps IPO route was for those big Tatas, Birlas, and some of those divisions and things like that, and were not known to people like us.
An issue for us, and like the other panelists talked about, we also never built the business to sell, right? But this came out more as a strategic decision for us. It was indeed a difficult decision, considering that we were considered as one of the leaders in the group or in the field of double skin air handling. But that has always been known as the double skin air handling unit man of the country. So it was a difficult decision, but I think Dad always believed that the business sense is far more important than personal emotions.
Being passionate about your business, I'm also going to, and I think because all of that leads into this question, why do we sell a business? What causes us to sell a business? This is a very critical question, and there's no single line answer to the thing there, because there are many reasons why you actually exit a business. You're not doing it to dump something bad on the market. You can't do that. I mean, people are smart enough to. Most people are smarter than all of us put together. That's not the reason.
Having 100% owned business, but JV has its own importance, especially when you want to leverage upon each other's strength, right? And vis-a-vis a distributor model, I strongly believe JV is a far better model because it gives a long-term commitment for both the for all the partners, and when you're especially looking for such kind of a JV from a foreign company, it gives you an access to the complete technology. Yeah, in a price-sensitive market like India, our experience is that distribution cannot be sustained for long because you really need to localize the products to make it more competitive, and more than that, you need to adapt the products as per the Indian requirements or the local requirements. So JV plays a very, very critical role over there. I think in our experience, we have also learned that it has given us a wonderful opportunity.
Going from generation, or times have changed, and
you should manage your business as if it's going to be sold at some stage. It's going to be. You should manage your business with all those values. And what are the values people look for? Your organization, the quality of your organization, the quality of your customers, all the right things which a business should be doing. That's what you do. If you start taking shortcuts, if you.
We spoke about manufacturing acquisitions, companies who are in the business of manufacturing. But the contracting community is a very big community in the HVAC and our industry. We could call them system integrators. They are the ones who actually put the solutions together. Can a contracting company, which is people-driven, can that get acquired? Well, we got to know the deep insights on this when we got Mr. Vinod Saldi, an entrepreneur, and now the current director and CEO of ABS Fujitsu General. Fujitsu General actually picked up a huge majority stake in his company that he started along with a few friends. Listen to what he had to say. Running into new territories, but also adding new lines of business.
I think at the base of it, what is most important is the capital, the working capital, because contracting per se is capital intensive, and we had to stick to HVAC for a large extent because we knew what the cash flow patterns are and the type of clients and the kind of challenges it could we could get. So these are the and how we could solve them and still ensure that the cash cycles are maintained. Uh, these were the points on which we concentrated. Uh, Internally, a method wherein we get to know every Monday what is the our exposure to the particular project, be it a small 10 lakh project to any size. We know on every Monday that this is the exposure what we have made to each of this project, irrespective of the location, irrespective of the size of the project. So that actually gave the managers clarity as to what should be their action on the field. If I mean, I was so privileged that all along you're called. This is a little success. So if I had to receive it, I'm sure anything we have grown uh, three times from the time in 2018, notwithstanding the impact of pandemic on the business. We have grown 3x in the last 2.5 years, mm, being in the joint venture. So if these are available, I'm sure it would attract many more such joint ventures among the properly organized companies.
Amazing. So great. So just that was all about acquisitions. Now, the last two episodes, we went back to staying focused on refrigeration, but this time with a big difference. And this was done with an intent to actually throw open and showcase to the industry the opportunities that is there in entrepreneurship in refrigeration. Because often when professionals turn around into entrepreneurship, they tend to take the air conditioning route, which is more the easier one, and then that space tends to get crowded. What about refrigeration? It's at a very early stage, it's an nascent stage, and there is fabulous opportunities out there, especially in the cold chain. So one such professional who successfully built a refrigeration business was Mr. Dharmendra Sundar Babu. He had an inspiring journey of how he built his refrigeration business from Bangalore. Listen to what he had to say.
Of we are actually I would rather say that we would need more people to come forward. There are very few people who are into this line of business, especially when you talk about integrated solutions. Getting a machinery is easy, or selling a advantage for an enterprise. Having a professional turned entrepreneur is the learning he had gone through in his professional career. And it is important that he had achieved. In fact, he was trying to explore whatever knowledge which we have gained out of the previous professional activities. See, those knowledge was done at their premises, at their cost, and you have been proven that you are successful there even. So copying that or implementing that over here is not a difficult task, is what I feel, Mr. Ajit, because if you want to test, your experience, your R&Ds, your knowledge, your ideas at your cost, at this point of time, being an entrepreneur, having lesser support on the financial thing, it will be difficult. But a professional come entrepreneur, there are areas where who will go into that is a question. Who will ring the thing bus? Because when you talk about anything lesser than 18-degree temperatures and higher than 12-degree temperatures, this area is blank. But let me be very frank with you, that is the biggest area requirement in India because we are into a lot of food manufacturing and food processing. So anything higher than 18, lower than 18, air conditioning people will say it is not into our kitty. And anything higher than 12-degree refrigeration, people will say we cannot get into that. But there is a beautiful play to do there, because between the 12 to 18, with the support of relative humidity control, It's a very, very big area which we need to address.
Werner Fenley sounds kind of a European company, right? It's another successful story from Bangalore, a refrigeration business. And we had Mr. Viplav Rao, the second generation entrepreneur who took on his company to scale it up to new heights. This is his story.
Wherein, my whole dream, or, the kind of dream that I built in the first 10 years was to start scaling up this business, because I started seeing that there was a lot of potential. So since 2010, so it's been a great learning journey for me, and I'm continuously learning. So hopefully, someday we will be a global, player, manufacturing and, supplying across the globe.
Amazing.
No brainer, system is a must. It's a must, because the only sign of the only sign that a business is alive, that it has to be growing. Otherwise, you just look at any business that's not growing, and the fixed cost will catch up within no time, and, you'll be struggling to stay afloat. So it's very important that every business continuously grows. And this is not an easy task. And that is why so few businesses, so I mean, from my standpoint, cooling or air conditioning is an essential. It's not a luxury, number one. So definitely, the high GST rates that are being applied to this category of, equipment needs to be definitely relooked in. And that will help also the, cost to come down, or the price to come down, and, will help better penetration of air conditioning, etc. Because the summers are becoming so hot in India, and the affordability, is still a question mark. And we have hardly, I'm not very sure of the figure, maybe we have some 10-11% penetration, vis-a-vis compared to a China, which has, 70% penetration of air conditioning or heating, as required. So it's an essential, and it is something that is very important for a person to sleep well. So I think it's an extreme essential. Or see, one is it's completely missing here, academia and industry working together, because innovation should happen. For the money will flow in, okay, but innovation should happen. And for innovation to happen, we need to work with, academia. We need to be very closely working with all the good, technical institutes or, colleges around us. Like, for example, in Bangalore, we have Indian Institute of Science, and then in Chennai, we have IIT Chennai, which has a fantastic refrigeration, lab, and a lot of innovation is happening there. And even if you see today any other industry also where innovation is happening, it's all somewhere, linked to some, IIT, or, one of these colleges are also, helping them innovate. So I think that is something that the government or the industry themselves also can do.
That's the 23 episodes of, and I've just about, like all the episodes, just about managed to bring it to 90 minutes, even in the final episode. So you've seen all those lovely, inspiring thoughts and the key highlights of all those episodes. Go back to the website, www.rataindia.com, go to the event section, choose this events and go through it. And trust me, when you feel low and when those businesses become challenging, some of these stories can be truly inspiring. Now, it's fantastic that before I wind up, as entrepreneurs, one of the things that we always ask is, "ठीक है, सब कुछ अच्छा कर दिया यार, बहुत motivating है, सब कुछ किया." Bottom line, what did you achieve? Can you quantify your achievement? Can you put those numbers there? 2 years ago, when we started this program, we were, as I told you at the beginning, we were 180 members, just one committee, and just about 10 odd committee members. Today, when I speak to you, we are 12 committees, close to 100 committee members, and we are a membership of 1,025 MSMEs, 1,025 companies as a members. It's a phenomenal achievement that we have put together, and that too in times like the COVID times, where everything had shut down. It's amazing how small businesses can come together to collaborate, to help each other and grow the business. And if there is any story that completely stands out as a business challenge, there is no better story than the story of the scaling up of the Refrigeration and Air Conditioning Trade Association. And trust me, my friends, for this industry, this is just the beginning. I've enjoyed bringing each and every episode every month. It's been a great learning journey for me. I've made some of the best friends. I've learned quite a bit of it. I put my COVID times to great use. And it's fabulous that this industry is all out to grow, and Indian entrepreneurship will go out and make it happen in the air conditioning, refrigeration, and ventilation field in India. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to bring this to you, and we will get back to you with many more such programs. But for Business Chunautiyan, after 2 years, after 24 episodes, this is the final one. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye-bye.